Hi everyone! Today we are gonna try to make Cape Malay pickled fish. This is something that Denny said that they used to have in South Africa, and he really wanted to try it, so we were gonna try to make it.
Still have in South Africa.
Yes, but you are not still in South Africa. So this recipe, I think the biggest hurdle so far was to try to find the right kind of fish. Because according to the recipe that we found and wanted to try out, there were several different types of fish that you could use where we didn't find quite any one of them in the store. If we wanted to try the names for these ones, the first one that was mentioned, I would read as Gielbeck, but you said that it was called
Gielbeck.
Gielbeck, which is some kind of salmon fish.
Yeah.
And there's something called cabeljou. How do you say that? Cabeljou. Or yellowtail, which is supposedly either some kind of codfish or some kind of mackerel fish. There's also something called tarahiki or hoke. And the hoke was the one that we tried to find.
You mean hake?
Hake, is that what you call it? Hake. In Swedish it's called kummel, but they don't keep it in all the stores. So we settled for cod, and we're gonna make about 750 grams of Cape Malay pickled cod. So we went to the store and bought some nice fresh cod fillets. We'll start by cutting these up into pieces and seasoning them gently with some salt. Then we will bake them in the oven in 180 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes. So we'll simply start by cutting these up into bigger chunks and seasoning them a little bit. And I forgot to preheat my oven, but that's how it goes. So,
At what degree?
180 degrees Celsius, which if you use any kind of other system than the metric, I'm sure there are good conversions for it. And I'm using Himalayan rock salt. I suppose you could also have sea salt, but this is just what we had at hand right now. Just placing these in the oven pan. And next one. And I think my son just woke up. Go get him in a minute. Okay. So now we've put some butter on the oven tray and gently salted the cod. Left some butter in there so it doesn't, so it has a little bit to simmer in. And we're gonna bake this in the oven at 180 degrees Celsius for about 15 to 20 minutes. So we're gonna start with putting this in, and then we are going to move on making the curry that the fish will be pickled in. So for the curry, we want to use 1 big onion or 2 small onions. I got the small kind. We are going to use bay leaves, ginger, turmeric, curry powder. I have curry madras here, ground coriander, salt, white wine vinegar, some corn flour, and brown sugar, and salt and pepper to taste. So what we want to start with is to cut the onion into slices. So we will start by peeling the onions, cutting them into halves, and then into thin slices. now that we've cut our onions, we want to heat a little bit of oil in a fry pan and cook our onions gently until they start to soften, and then we're gonna add our spices. So into the pan this goes. And then we're just gonna keep stirring that gently until we feel that it's nice and soft.
Rinse the onions. The cook can't seem to handle the heat in the kitchen.
These onions! Oh my goodness, I've never been good with onions, but this is really embarrassing.
You know, you kind of make yourself look like an amateur.
I am an amateur.
She's never been in a kitchen before, folks.
That is not true.
And she's doing a cooking show.
I don't know, do you ever get used to onions?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I never got to
when
that.
you get used to cooking.
So you just keep on stirring these for a little while until they soften. And I'm gonna go clean my eyes off so I don't look like a raccoon. But of course you need to check on the fish and see that it's cooked through, because you don't want it to be raw in the middle, and how long it takes would depend on how thick the fillets are. Especially with cod, the way we're using it right now, because you can get these really nice fillets but they're really thin, or you can use a cut that is like the cod's back, and they can be, if it's from a really big cod, you can have like really thick chunks, and I suppose that would take a lot longer to bake through them. I'm just gonna give these a little bit more time. So now that our onions have become a little bit softer, we want to add our spices. So, and I just realized I didn't think this through because the teaspoon is too big. So the recipe we're using calls for 500 grams of fish, but we're using 750, so I'm going to up the spices a little bit. We want to have 1 teaspoon, so 1.5 teaspoon of curry powder. Gotta do this over. Okay. In some future video, maybe we'll have all the spices nicely measured before we start this. There, 1.5 teaspoon. Curry powder. We want 1 teaspoon for 500 grams of fish, so 1.5 teaspoon of turmeric powder. See all these beautiful colors coming in. We want 1/2 teaspoon of ginger, so 3/4 of a teaspoon for 700 grams of fish. And 1/4 of a teaspoon of coriander. Now I like coriander, but so we'll make about 1/2 teaspoon of coriander. Cooking isn't rocket science, at least not like the normal kind of home cooking. We also want to add our bay leaves. So the recipe for 500 grams calls for 2 bay leaves or lemon leaves. So we are going to use 3 of them, and we put that in there. Now we want to stir this around, and then we are going to add the vinegar that is going to turn this into a pickling sauce.
What sauce?
Like pickling sauce? Is that
Okay.
is that even a word?
Well, just if it's not a word, just make it.
If it's not a word, you make a word that suits the situation. So the recipe calls for half a cup of white wine vinegar. A cup is just about 250 milliliters, if I remember this correctly. This is 250 milliliters, so I'm going to count that I want to keep 1/4 of this. So that would make about 3/4.
You need help with that bottle?
Might want to have to open it properly first. So some quick maths. 250 milliliters, that should be a cup. We 500 grams of fish, half a cup. 750 grams of fish, 3/4 of a cup. And we pour this in. And if you've ever dealt with vinegar, or if you haven't, I can tell you that this, especially heating it up like this, it goes straight to your nose. Ooh. A little bit. It's about like that. About 3/4 of a cup. We want to stir this around a little bit. Now mind you, I'm talking like I've done this before, but I haven't. This is a complete experiment for us. So it will be very interesting to see.
Well, it smells about right?
It smells about right. I also saw recipes that called for a little bit of allspice. Oh, it's going to my eyes again. And I suppose that the allspice would give it a little bit more of a Christmassy, spicy flavor to it. But this recipe didn't, so we're leaving it out for now. Next we want to use 3 to 4 tablespoons of brown sugar, so let's make that 5, maybe? Again, it's not rocket science. You do the best you can and then you taste it and you change it up, depending on if you don't like it or not. I think we're gonna do this, because this one is... We might want to make a blooper roll for this. For all the things that don't look very professional. It's about 5, let's make it 6 tablespoons of brown sugar. 3, 4, 5. That's about right. And we want to stir until this is nicely dissolved. After this we are almost done. We're gonna add salt and pepper to taste, and then some of the corn flour dissolved in some water to thicken the mixture a little bit. It's always interesting when you try to make something that isn't from your own culture, you know? Because you have no idea how to make it, but as you make it and you start smelling it, it's just very exciting. There we go, and we'll turn this up a little bit more. There. So that, does it smell about right?
So far, so good.
So far, so good? Okay. Well, that's good. Then we'll add a little bit of salt and pepper. And have a taste. And I tend to overdo it with the pepper. So we'll be a bit gentle there.
And that's about it for the sauce, right?
That's about it. We want to thicken it with some of the corn flour and let it cool down and have the fish be done and cool before we combine them and put it into, well, the recipe says an airtight container, but I think we're gonna be less fancy and put it in a plastic bag and then into a container to the whole air.
Could you be a bit patient, Polly? Just slightly patient. Yeah? Thank you.
So for a taste test. This vinegar is getting to my eyes. Woo.
Yeah, but I think that might be a bit too strong for you right now. But that's quite good.
Does it taste about right?
I think we still need the fish in there, but...
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. Lower the heat a little bit, and then we're gonna combine some. Show this man. We're gonna combine. It says 2 teaspoons of corn flour, making it 3 for us, and just mix that into a paste so that we can thicken the sauce slightly. Ever so slightly. There. 3 teaspoons of corn flour. We just want to mix this with a little bit of water. That might have been too much water. And then pour this into our sauce. I'd say it smells really nice. This is sweet and sour oniony curry flavor. It's actually like, it's very fresh. Because usually I find, but I'm Swedish and we don't use that much, like that many or that much spices in our food. But I usually find if you try Indian food and a lot of curries, they're very rich and can almost feel a little bit heavy, but this feels very light and fresh because I guess of the vinegar being quite...
It has a very unique taste.
Yeah, it's very, very nice. I would recommend anyone to try to make this actually. It's very tasty. And the vinegar doesn't come across too strong either. It's like a fresh lemony flavor.
Yeah, I mean it actually blends really well with the fish.
Yeah.
And the fish gets a really nice color as well.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean I really hope it comes out close to
how you used to.
Yeah. Then you really enjoy it.
Yeah. So now we're just gonna let this thicken slightly. And we're gonna wait for the fish to be done and let everything cool down before we combine it. Again, to avoid air pockets, I think, and save space in the fridge, I think we're simply gonna put this, oh god, this vinegar. I think we're simply gonna put this in combine it in a plastic bag, pack it really nice and tight, into a container and then into the fridge. And you're supposed to pickle this for 2 to 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Minimum 3 days.
Minimum 3 days, okay. There we go. I think this is nice and slightly thicker now. It seems like it's a consistency that would coat the fish really nicely. There. So we're gonna clean up here and we're gonna be back with the fish and the sauce when we put it all together. There. So we've taken our fish out of the oven and we just want to poke it gently to see that it is cooked all the way through. Otherwise we're gonna have to put it in for another couple of minutes. So I like to find like one of the thickest parts and just squeeze it a little bit, and you see that that is nice and soft and the fish just falls apart, so it's well cooked. Now we just need to leave this to cool down and then we're gonna pack it and layer it with the sauce and leave it to pickle. God, this vinegar is getting on my eyes. I'm so sorry.
Well, I'm recording right now.
Yeah, I know. Oh, goodness, it will be worth it.
You are not selling this fish right now.
You can cut it out in post.
I'm not cutting nothing.
So now that the fish and the pickle has cooled down, we want to layer them and make sure that every piece of fish gets an even layer, an even coat of sauce. Cod, as we're using, is quite fragile, so you want to make sure to layer them quite gently. So we'll start with, and I'm going to pick these in a plastic bag because that will be the most handy for us. This is not a very fancy schmancy cooking show. This is just normal everyday home cooking, and we'll try some fun stuff. Some pickle, and we're gonna put down a piece of fish like this. A little bit more pickle, and then a little bit more fish, and so on. And I want to try to make sure that it gets covered in between like this. So just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, layer it like a cake. And this has me actually thinking that maybe we should have had more sauce, because it doesn't look like this very much.
It's okay. For our first time, it's okay.
For a first time, I think this, it looks okay. It smells absolutely delicious. And of course, when it's in the bag, we're gonna like rub it around and make sure that it's nice and coated. It smells awesome. Like in Swedish cooking tradition, we have different types of pickled fish. We don't have specifically this one. It would generally be pickled more like, so you could have a salted herring that you pickle in different kinds of sauces. We call that specil. And we have something called strömming, which is also herring, but you make it in a different way. You actually, and we're gonna make another video of this later on today, where you fry fish with spices and you eat it one day, and then you pickle it and you can eat it the upcoming couple of days.
The thing is with
South
South African food is we use a lot of spices, obviously influenced by
Indian food
the
traditions.
Indian community in South Africa
Yeah.
and Malay.
Yeah.
But this is actually from Cape Town. I think this recipe.
I saw in the recipes it was referred to as Cape Malay pickled fish. Because there's a mix of South African and Malaysian immigrants.
So the culture over there. I mean, one of the dishes we will hopefully make one day will be cook sisters, which uses like 11 different spices. Just for, like, I mean, it's
it has a very unique flavor to it. So it's basically fried pastries, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you would call it? So there, we've coated it all. I think an important thing to always take away is that, I mean, there's so many things you can do with cooking, right? And you can make it so complicated and so fancy, but at the end of the day, somehow a lot of people grow up always finding their mom's food to be the best, you know? And like housewives cooking isn't necessarily always the most complicated one, but they find a way of using spices and foods in such a way that it's rich and it's filling and it's lovely and this into this container just to keep it in place, and leave this now in the fridge for 3+ days. What is it today? It's Thursday today?
Yeah, it is Thursday, so we'll have it out on Sunday.
On Sunday.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll have to come back with the taste testing.
Yeah.
But this is us for now, and this is Cape Malay pickled fish, first attempt.